I was about 13 years old when Pokemon really started taking off, which is a strange age because some kids were too mature for Pokemon, but also not mature enough to just let it be. So some kids, they had to pronounce their disinterest in Pokemon. I feel like that's why a lot of kids used to say Pokemans as just shorthand for I'm too cool to say it the right way. Anyway, I was thinking about just today how this song was pretty popular on LimeWire for a minute.
I hate Pokemon.
It's a parody of the Thong song. Happy Pokemon Day to you. Oh, you didn't know? Yeah, so every February 27th is the day the world celebrates the original release of Pokemon Red and Green in Japan. In terms of beloved annual video game holidays, it's right up there with March 10th being Mario Day and November 7th being Mass Effect Day. Can't wait for the next Mass Effect Day. The biggest reveal on this bountiful Pokemon Day was an extended look at Pokemon Legends Z to A. We're gonna have to pause right here. I realized while editing this video, the name of the game is just ZA. For some reason, I had it in my head the game's called Pokemon Z to A, like the opposite of A to Z. And unfortunately, you're going to hear me make this mistake for the rest of this entire video. Thank you for your understanding. You might immediately recognize by glancing at this footage, the game looks rough. It's absolutely crazy to me that they think they can just make buildings out of big rectangles with a single flat windows and railings and railing plants texture. And that flies. I gotta constantly remind myself that Nintendo is only a partial owner of Pokemon. Miyamoto is not even allowed to go into those offices and flip over all their tables. They can do whatever they want. And it looks suspiciously like someone there is asking, what is the absolute least we can do? However, at the same time, it does also seem like the Pokemon Company is always up to something crazy they absolutely don't need to be doing. And I feel like that's the reason, that's the key. It's how they manage to stay on top of Wikipedia's highest grossing media franchises every year. Mickey Mouse, catch up. So just a couple of weeks ago, I got to reintroduce the advanced delayed input concept of Agumon syndrome. And by the way, no, that was not an intentional typo to encourage engagement in the comments. Neither was Digmon. Sometimes I'm just organically stupid. Anyway, I keep making fun of Digimon for its over-reliance on Agumon. Their cover boy since 1998. Some highly intelligent, critically thinking commenters were wise to point out, what? Pokemon does the same thing with Pikachu. Now, I would like to take this moment to reveal I was being facetious in that last sentence. Those comments are, in fact, poorly informed. Because, yeah, Pikachu is the guy. He's the star. He is the mascot. Today's Pokemon Presents opened with him just goofing around, trying to figure out what the deal is with this ovally TV. But here's the difference, and this is part of why I think this franchise endures. They do keep Pikachu around. Sure. But they branch out and put new buddies on the forefront all the time, carrying the old thing around while experimenting with dramatically new stuff. So today we saw the reveal of Pokemon Champions, a presumably free-to-play battles-only game playable on mobile devices and the Switch. These are serious battles for big kids. This game is for people who drip sweat when they battle. Pikachu is not invited. He is not part of the competitive meta. However, there he is in the key art. Still a Pokemon game. And Pokemon Legends Z to A kind of tells a very similar story. It's the direct sequel to Pokemon Legends Arceus, which set up a clear template for in-between mainline games, where we'd visit the historical past of a region with a simplified battle system, more of a reliance on exploration. The prototype was there. They could have just kept making that over and over and over, and I think fans would have been happy. Instead, Pokemon Legends Z to A takes place all in one city. One that was already heavily featured in Pokemon X and Y. They're saying, what if the whole game happened in that one spot? And I'm not sure there are a lot of people out there who believe that Game Freak can pull off an open world city game, but I do think it's brave. It's not a good idea, but it's at least a different idea. It is they could have coasted, but they chose something unappealing yet new. It's like, here's a stupid thing. I know I've got a reputation for nitpicking, for getting hung up on some irrelevant minutia, but I do feel like it's indicative of a miscalculation in game design. So like, I believe an underrated aspect of Breath of the Wild is that you can climb on almost anything. And you're probably thinking, Kyle, what? No part of Breath of the Wild is underrated. But I thought every game would just have us climbing all over them at this point. Not only does it add this whole extra freeform dimension of exploration, I feel like it makes the world itself more tangible. You can touch all of it. Arceus, in being clearly inspired by Breath of the Wild, had its own climbing, but how it would work is you'd get in the woven backpack of this gangly aberration named Sneasler. That's Sneasler right there. And as much as having this intimate dependence on a Sneasler is naturally concerning, I do think it's a fun game mechanic. This is true of a lot of games where early in a game, you see like out of reach a little golden sparkling thing. You want to go get there, but you can't. You don't have the ability to obtain that yet. Later in the game, you get a tool. Or, in this case, humans have this body. And then you remember that thing. You go back to it. Now you have access. Now you can obtain that treasure. That feels good in any video game. It's a good video game exclusive feeling. And thematically, it's a good idea in Arceus's case that the tool, the thing that enables you to have this freedom, is a Pokemon itself. Use the franchise. That makes sense. Now, in contrast, look at how you get to the top of a building in Z to A. Yeah, you sci-fi magically materialize on the roof. I know the Pokemon franchise is no stranger to teleporters. All right, I'm not saying this doesn't work with the in-world logic. What I'm saying is that it doesn't seem fun to do. It doesn't seem rewarding. And worst of all, it doesn't use the strengths of the franchise. There are over 1,000 Pokemon at this point. There must be at least a few who could figure out how to help you get to the top of a roof. And I think just what we're seeing here is just someone saying, I want to get the player to the roof as fast as possible. What's the least we could do? Conversely, and this one is petty, something that has bothered me is when they overthink the implementation of Pokemon. Like, in the world of Pokemon, what would a cell phone be? And it's like, a cell phone. It would be a cell phone. It's okay to make it a cell phone with, like, extra knobs on it. Instead, they chose to make cell phones, all of them, inhabited by a living ghost Pokemon who wakes up to let you know when you have a text message. And we have to presume is aware of everything you look at on your phone. That poor creature. But here's a good visual illustration. Look at the old promotional map for Pokemon X and Y. I love this kind of map. You look at this, you say, oh, I want to see that. I want to go there. I wonder what that is. Here's the promotional map for Legend Z to A. Clearly, it's much less inspiring. So many buildings. It's like someone forgot what is fun about video games. However, where I think they were needlessly bold, where they went over the top in a direction they didn't have to, is the combat system. Z to A is introducing real-time battles where your moves have cooldowns but also three-dimensional attributes. There's this shot here where a Hippowdon throws some rocks in the air to stop this stupid Talonflame dead in its tracks mid-attack. But that's like something you would only see on the TV show, and you'd point at the TV and you would say, I wish the games were more like that. It's a cool thing. It's very cool. And here's the thing. Pokemon Legends Arceus had a fine combat system. People liked it. They didn't have to change that. Yet, at some point in development, somebody said, I've got a crazy idea. There's a fluffy BBC interview released for Pokemon Day with Pokemon Company CEO Tsunekazu Ishihara. And yeah, here's what you pull for your headline. If we continue focusing on our mission, Pokemon can probably continue to its 50th or 100th anniversary. 50 is a lock at this point. I didn't realize Pokemon Go is going to be celebrating its 10th anniversary next year. Blah. Look, 50 is no problem. 100 is feasible. But he continues, this is the relevant part. But if we become complacent and go with the flow, that's when Pokemon will go downhill. And yeah, I gotta say, despite all of the stupid things they're doing, I could never honestly accuse Pokemon of going with the flow. They're still doing weird stuff. They're trying out weird things. Some new Pokemon work. Some new Pokemon shouldn't exist. But it's this continuous willingness to experiment with the standards that I find so inspiring. However, if I could stop wrapping up for a moment, BBC did ask about scalpers. Fans have suggested the Pokemon Company could produce a greater volume of hard-to-find or limited-run items, but Mr. Ishihara says it cannot do much to control the resale market. He says those items are seen to be valuable because they're rare or seen as vintage? And it's not our place to say that they're not. Yes, it is, though. My suggestion to the Pokemon Company would be to keep printing Pokemon cards until I can go to the store and buy some. And then you show off a couple of glittering new mega cards that I couldn't possibly obtain at MSRP? How dare you? You know what? I'm just gonna say it. I hate Pokemon. I couldn't possibly. I love Pokemon. Anyway, that's delayed input. I'll be back next week. Thanks for watching. Got kind of a bummer of an update for you here. Do you remember in November of last year, I was making fun of how David Zaslav was saying that WB is going to be doubling down and focusing its gaming efforts on its 4 profitable key franchises: Hogwarts Legacy, Mortal Kombat, Game of Thrones, and DC in particular, Batman. So this week we got to learn just how serious they were about that when WB announced the closures of 3 studios. WB Games San Diego, which was making mobile games, Player First Games, makers of Multiverses, and Monolith, who most recently made the Middle-earth games and was working on that Wonder Woman game. Now, why would WB Games do that? Well, of course, it was to structure their development studios and investments around building the best games possible with their key franchises: Harry Potter, Mortal Kombat, DC, and Game of Thrones. WB Games. What's the least we can do? Also this week, IGN did a write-up of a presentation with DC Studios co-chiefs James Gunn and Peter Safran. And in one part of this presentation, they talked specifically about how involved they were with video games based off of DC properties. Peter Safran quoted here, "James and I sit with literally the guys that run the studios underneath JB. Perrette, CEO and President, Global Streaming and Games. Whether it's NetherRealm or whether it's Rocksteady, sit with them and talk about characters and stories that we're interested in and that they're interested in." So obviously weird time to be so jovial about that, but also they did explicitly name drop Rocksteady and NetherRealm. And it's not crazy to think Rocksteady's working on a new Batman game. That seems about right. But NetherRealm, remember, has to work on Mortal Kombat, one of the 4 key franchises. So I don't get how it is that they could be working on a new Mortal Kombat, one of the 4 WB pillars, and having meetings about a DC Universe game, unless we're talking about Mortal Kombat versus DC Cinematic Universe. In which case, I have one request. Don't let anyone punch that dog.